Hello, and welcome to yet another episode of the Back to the TARDIS podcast, the podcast where we take a look at every single episode of the 2005 revival of BBC's Doctor Who. I'm Jeff.
I'm Skylar.
And it's your bitch Celeste.
And also with us is our Patreon backer special guest.
Emma.
What?
That's me.
Yay. And today we will probably be spending the next hour to 2 hours of your time gushing about the 2009 autumn special, The Waters of Mars, by our lad, our boy, RTD. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm
It's
just
a good
going to start off
episode.
with, like, I had
It's a
this
good episode.
observation, which, by the way, this episode might be coming out a little late because we were having some scheduling stuff, mix-ups, stuff like that. But when like Celeste and Skylar and I briefly popped in like voice chat for a bit on our usual recording day, I brought this up, which is I'm going to put forward my thesis that I think that this is actually like the best looking episode of Doctor Who. Because, yes, it is not necessarily as flashy as like some of the Chibnall era stuff, and it doesn't necessarily have like quite the consistency of like Capaldi era Moffat. But that being said, it was shot in HD, so it doesn't have the usual RTD problem of being kind of artifacty. It is very minimal on CGI. So usually, even in, like, for example, even in Planet of the Dead, the thing that like holds it back is the CGI. Kind of gnarly. And C, the art direction for the space station and like all of the set design and all of that is wonderful and looks great.
I would definitely agree that
Like I
for everything up through this point, like RTD era stuff, this is definitely the best looking episode. I'm not sure it would be better than Capaldi era Moffat, just because there are some season 9, season 10 episodes that look fucking amazing. It's definitely
Yeah.
up there.
it's definitely
It is on that level
on
for
that
sure.
level, yeah. And of course it's also directed very well because it's directed by Graham Harper, who obviously did a lot of who did some classic stuff and also did like Rise of the Cybermen and like Army of Ghosts, and like basically has directed a lot of New Who episodes, and is like was really good. But like this one in particular is
Yeah,
directed
for sure. Like the,
very
the
well.
main episodes that are like sticking in my head as like possibly being better looking would be Heaven Sent and Time Heist, because those two also look
Yeah.
similarly like
Yeah, those are those are definitely contenders.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with Sal there.
Yeah.
With this is probably the best looking RTD episode. But then anything directed by Rachel Talalay will blow it out of the water.
Oh yes, Rachel, yes, is also the other like really good Who director. Yeah, definitely.
It is appropriately. It looks appropriate for its scale, like thematically, and just for the scale of the narrative. Really helps it out. I was able to watch this at my parents' home on their big TV because they have HBO Max, and it's been the first time watching RTD where it didn't look like kind of like weird blown up to that size that the TV is. So I was just like, okay, wow, like
Yeah, definitely.
this is something else.
And like usually when we like compare stuff on this, like stuff that Doctor Who does on this podcast, to something else, it's in like a bad way. But I will say that like the aesthetic design and feel of it reminded me of how good looking a movie The Martian was.
that is true. Very much like I'm almost wondering if that movie like took some inspiration in
I don't
visual
know.
design from this episode, just because it's like similar subject. You know, it's obviously both Martian expeditions.
Yeah. I mean,
Like-
I think both of them took a lot of their aesthetic designs and ideas from like sort of the way that the space tech that we already have looks.
Yeah, I'd
But
say
Yeah, for sure. It's very grounded in reality for sure.
yeah.
it's very believable that in 2059 we could have a Mars base that would look quite similar to that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
and I think one of the reasons that sticks out in my head, like beyond just the HD sort of camera, is that, RTD, when he's designing space stations, a lot of the times he has that, characteristic grunginess to it, whereas this station is very clean. And that's something that like sticks out in my head because and
Yeah.
it fits because this is a
But
much newer
it's
station.
clean instead of being like Moffat clean, where it's
Yeah.
like it's clean because like fantasy sci-fi fairy it's clean in the sense that the International Space Station is clean.
Yeah.
And not Chibnall clean, where the color palette is muted.
Oh god, the lens
Oh,
flares! Oh god, the lens flares!
It's not clean. You've
Yeah.
just gone blind from the light.
I mean, this really isn't a Chibnall dig. I swear Doctor Who looks worse now. And it isn't just because of, like, the writing and the story quality. Like, fucking all of that. Like, disregarding. I was just like, wow, this looks better and, like, draws my attention more.
You can directly compare the new Dalek thing. If you look at the trailer and then you look at the promotional picture from the same angle, it looks a lot better in the promotional picture because it hasn't got the lenses they don't know how to use.
Yeah, I will say I have actually come around a little on the new Dalek design. Of course, that depends how the episode actually fucking uses it, but like, I don't hate it anymore. I'm just kind of like,
I'm still just hoping that Time War Daleks come along and just murder them all.
Yeah, who knows? I'm hoping the episode is actually as based as it looks like it's going to be. I don't think it is, but
that picture of a cop hiding behind a Dalek is pretty. Looks pretty good. To be fair.
Yeah.
I do want to add just as a last note on the video quality, beyond just like appreciating the general aesthetic of the HD filming. Thank God Doctor Who is out of its snuff film era, because Jesus Christ, some of that was painful to watch.
Okay, what Celeste is talking about here is that was something that they had specifically described about Doctor Who when they were shooting in the like 480p. Not necessarily series 1 where it's very like warm and like overlit. Specifically like series 2 through 4 where it was better
absolutely
lit,
like
I think kind of grainy shot in 480.
Yeah, I think I first noticed it in season 2. Just like you get the movements where it's like you're watching reality TV or like some really bad porn movie where you have like where you fucked up the settings on your TV. Like it looked like that.
Oh yeah, that's why. It's because it was interlaced 576i. So yeah.
You get the interlaced frames,
interlaced and doesn't necessarily have like the warm lighting of series 1, so it's like a lot more noticeable.
Seeing those sideburns in HD, it changes a girl. I'm fucking with you, but
oh man. All right. Anyways, so yeah. The other thesis statement actually that I'm gonna put out about this episode is that this is possibly the pinnacle of the Base Under Siege formula, and it's kind of like just by the nature of when this episode came out, even though the Base Under Siege formula is still good, it's still kind of all downhill from here.
Yeah, I can't think of any example that's particularly good of this at all, never mind comparatively to this episode.
Yeah. And it's like, for example, Base Under Siege is like, for example, the one that I would think of would be Impossible Planet Satan Pit, which is also a 10 out of 10 in its own right, isn't as good as this. And that astonishes me because that episode is a fucking 2-parter. So that still has like the growth character like time and pacing that I would expect. But this manages to still somehow outdo it despite only being 60 minutes long. Like last week's complaint of like, yeah, this episode needed half an hour. I don't think this episode needed an extra half an hour. It's fine the way it is.
Yeah, and stuff goes to shit really quickly. When I was watching it, I was checking how long it took before everything started to go into shit, and it happens very fast.
But it still manages to pack a lot of character into that little bit.
Yeah. I mean, it's basically the doctor shows up and he's like, "Whoa, y'all are the people," and then shit starts happening.
Yeah.
Goes from whoa,
Yeah.
you're the people to holy fuck, oh no, you're the people, oh god.
Yeah.
I should really go, but I kind of don't want to.
Yeah. And it was actually really funny that I was watching like Children of Earth Day 1 like right before I came here, because they're both kind of like RTD after like floundering for the past few with the exception of Next Doctor, which was fine, very like much like a comfort Doctor episode, like floundering for the last year. It's just like, okay, I'm back, my dick is on the table, fuck you.
I mean, it very much comes across as like, never forget this is my show.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Never
remember who
forget
built
that I
you.
am the best showrunner.
Yeah,
Like it's yeah. And it's another thing of like, on the one hand, like I will take an episode like this and be like, you know, this is like an example of like why I'm like harsh on the show, because I know it can be better. But on the other hand, in this particular case, that lightning's not striking twice. I don't think. I don't even
Nope.
think RTD could make that lightning strike twice.
Yeah,
This is
felt
a singular like unique episode that like wouldn't be topped by something else trying to do this.
this
Yeah,
felt
and I,
like
I
a
think
special.
part of that, yeah, part of that is just because it has like a unique runtime. It has that 1 hour time to work with, where it can be a very tight story while also like having a bit more space to sort of play with its ideas.
Yeah. And also like thematically, like someone's gonna have to do a damn good job like inspecting like the Doctor's relationship with time and with events to like at all measure up to this.
And I think
Yeah.
just chronologically, it very much works only within the context of the 10th Doctor. You know, maybe if another Doctor had a story like the 10th, there could be something like this, but just it's not something I see working with the narrative of like 12 or 11.
Oh yeah, no, 7 would have turned around and walked the fuck out.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. This only works because he was knew he was fucking close to death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that too, yeah.
Not only is it narrative in its not only is it like a special in like the, you know, quote unquote like, you know, this is a special like how Planet of the Dead was a special. It's got a longer time. It's got, I assume it's got a bigger budget, but just what it does with the narrative, what it's able to do in that time. Like you were talking earlier about like nothing being able to like strike that lightning twice. I honestly think the closest we've come in all this time is the Heaven Sent Hell Bent two-parter with exploring the Doctor on that deep emotional level. And I know you like Hell Bent.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see where we're at in God like a year from now, because that's how long it's gonna fucking take. But fuck, come at me, bro.
But yeah, just seeing
it's not as good as Heaven Sent, but I don't think it's a bad episode.
I think it's poorly rated by a lot of people because it came after Heaven Sent. Like anything that came after Heaven Sent was going to be
better
downgraded
than what we got this year.
True.
And also I think that to sidetrack back to the look thing, I think that's the other missing piece of like, this is what RTD era could look like if they're not hamstrung by the fact of like, oh fuck, we have to fund 14 episodes this year. So like if you're just focusing on like 5, you can go a lot more in depth with like the sets.
There's also, this was originally going to be a Christmas special, which might have had a Christmas budget.
Oh, it
But
was.
then they
What the fuck
then they pushed it back.
what the fuck was
Yeah,
the time supposed to be?
I have no idea. Maybe it was going to be New Year. Then maybe they were writing it, and it was going. This needs to be a two-parter, so they pushed it back.
End
yeah,
of time
this was
Hanukkah
gonna be
special.
But
Huh.
yeah, this was going to be a Christmas special. They even had it was even workingly called Red Christmas.
Huh.
That's why there
Okay.
was snow everywhere. But then they pushed it to November.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. Interesting. All right. We've fucked around for like half an hour. Let's actually like go in depth. And I'm actually going to go in depth this week because there's a lot to talk about. So again, very economical with the way that like the character writing is set up. And like, for example, like I was talking with a friend of mine yesterday because like I've been like on the side kind of working on like a D&D campaign that I've been playing with friends, and I was like talking with my friend about like brainstorming ideas for it to go, and like how I had like ideas for emotional beats, and my friend was asking me like, do you think you have the time to set these up? And I'm thinking like, if I think about it and actually do it, yes, because it is possible to create memorable characters and attachments to characters and make you like feel things for characters that you've only known for 60 minutes. If you and like this is an example of like real economical writing.
Absolutely. And I'm trying to think how exactly he manages to do that.
I think it's just I mean, we've already discussed that like RTD's strong suit is and has always been the character writing.
Yeah,
like you see
absolutely.
you see it in Children of Earth too. The other thing that I picked up is like because RTD actually wrote all of Children of Earth as opposed to like him just kind of overseeing Torchwood but not actually like doing that much writing for it. Like you notice like, oh, there is a lot more like character scenes here, and it definitely feels like a lot more like character filled because RTD's really good at that. So it's like, for example, like the Russian guy is like putting like funny signs outside the base, and you got the tech whiz kid who's made up this robot, and you have like the hard ass like number two, but like a different kind of hard ass from Adelaide, and you have the scientists who are working like to grow shit and etc. Like it's just making like it's a little bit it's not necessarily fleshed out, but there's enough there for them to be distinct.
Yeah, I like how it will build characters off each other as well. Like I can't remember his name, but the number two, the Australian bloke.
Yeah.
How like there's like it's hints that there was something between him and Adelaide, but if you actually think about it, you know fucking literally nothing about it at all. But it's just by building them together makes both of them feel like more fleshed out characters with backstories and lives and etc.
Uh-huh.
There's flavor there, and a lesser episode, and this probably could have even worked, just like, okay, let's spend the majority of time on the Doctor and Adelaide, which the episode still does, but then like for the rest of the characters we'll just rely on the fact that like, oh, we know they die, so you should care. And there is that, but they also go the extra step of humanizing them, especially when the flood starts to get to them. Even especially this is impressive when it's just like the gardeners or like whatever their job title is. Like that's working all the way back there.
Who, like both die in the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I think the recorded Zoom messages as well were a nice touch to.
Yeah, that made me. I saw that and was like, wait a second, Interstellar.
Is Christopher Nolan British?
Yes. He is.
I would say Waters of Mars walked so Interstellar could run, but no, Waters of Mars ran so Interstellar could walk.
Yeah. So yeah. And it's really kind of it's interesting how like normally it's like, yeah, he just walks into where like bad shit is happening, but in this case, like it's really sort of emphasized of like how much he just kind of accidentally wanders into this situation and realizes that he's really fucked up this time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the only other time I've seen him round a fixed point that I can think off the top of my head would be like in Pompeii, and he was immediately he immediately actually tried to leave then. I don't know if it was more because he had Donna with him, it was, oh, I've got to fucking go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, also, like, to be fair, he does try as soon as he figures out, but he's not allowed to leave.
Mm-hmm.
So it is partly like he does genuinely try, but like Adelaide doesn't let him out.
And then he gets attached, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, he gets actually attached to the people, which like is like his like Achilles heel, and he keeps being like, I need to go, but
and I do like how he does directly draw that comparison to Pompeii. Like he says like, imagine if you were at Pompeii, and I'm like, hey. But obviously the difference here is at Pompeii he could do that, save one person kind of thing to like make himself feel better about it. But he can't do that here because it's a smaller number of people and all of them have fixed point deaths.
Yeah. Kind of. Yeah, it was I don't know if I would call this bloody subtle, but the fact that like this is brought back that there's the whole thing that I'm forgetting her name, but the Agatha Christie was like, there's part of you that's enjoying this, that's drawn into it, and some of it's kind of explored. Probably the most outside of this is in Midnight, where it's like part of his weakness is that he can't shut up and that he can't separate himself. And even though he does try to leave, like, that's 10 at this point, 10 at how far gone he almost already is. Yeah, this was like the perfect storm to almost send him down the wrong path.
Yeah, it's definitely not to the same extent as Midnight, but there is very much his like talk no jutsu getting in his way in this episode. Like, he keeps trying to get away and like not explain things, but then he just keeps telling Adelaide more and more. And it's like he just can't help himself. He like has to tell her. Yeah. He gets caught up in that same trap and then like obviously makes it happen. Like he literally says like, the more I tell you, the more I'm contributing to making it happen. And then it's her knowledge that it was supposed to be a fixed point that causes it.
Yeah, in the end, he tells her he's doing it as consolation, but I feel it's more to make himself feel better, like it's the most he could do.
Yeah. Oh shit! Happy birthday!
Hey, pogging.
Hey.
I knew I shared it with one Doctor Who alum, so thank you for reminding me. But yeah, busy day.
And the other thing is it's an interesting way of looking at fixed points, because I mean this also kind of goes back to like, I guess, spoiler alert for future like 8 stuff. 8 saving Charlie is kind of a fucking big deal, and kind of sort of like really starts like it starts in Chimes of Midnight, but like it really starts having repercussions. And it's interesting how, unlike the Charlie thing, which goes like a different route, this kind of goes the route of like, a fixed point will still happen, it will just take a different route to get there to have the same result.
Yeah, I like to. It's like so. Razalon did a time imperialism and set the web of time to ensure that the Time Lords would always be the one. Well, the Time Lords in charge of time. So if you fuck with it too much, everything breaks. So I feel like it's just because the web of time is so tied together that it just tries to force itself to remain as much as possible. What effect?
That's man, I didn't even think about the interesting idea that the entirety of like determinism and fixed points in the Doctor Who universe was created by time imperialism. I don't even think that's intentionally as based as it like actually is.
Nice.
There's definitely some interesting analysis you could do there. I need a young neocon thread on this, like a nice 50 tweet thread on this, a nice chonky thread from my boy young neocon.
I'll send you some caffeine. Yeah, that's yeah, impressive. And I think this is jumping ahead a bit, but I think this is one of the only times it's talked about that like higher species, not on the Time Lord level, but that like can fuck around with them, like the Daleks know enough to recognize maybe fixed points in time or things like that, and are just like, okay, yeah, I'm not fucking with this. This is above my pay grade.
Yeah. Sorry, my brain is just stuck on time imperialism because I'm thinking about the social implications of it.
Yeah, no, we'll get there next year when we like start bonus episodes back up again. But like, yeah, I really didn't think about it that way until now. Shit.
There's a lot you could say about state making and like the Time Lord state and how it reaches this point of ascendancy where the extension of civilization's power over nature has reached an ascendancy over time itself.
Time is the state, bitch.
Because like, you know, states and capital have this nature of fucking with time, you know, obviously the establishment of linear industrial time and stuff like that, but this takes that to like its logical conclusion of literally manipulating the fabric of time itself.
Part of the
when they wrote it,
making it a time thing was to literally change the laws of physics and lock them into something more beneficial to them, to remove magic from the system, because the matriarchal society Rassilon overthrew used magic for power. So
yeah. Oh yeah, no. Basically, Rassilon used like time eugenics. It's crazy, and I don't think any of this is intentional in terms of being like as based as it's like, oh, when you think about it, that
literally
because
literally there's a whole body of analysis about how witchcraft in you know early modern Europe was an anathema to the state, and how the early state and early capital like crushed it and suppressed it because it didn't fit into the like logical, you know, patriarchal new sort of Enlightenment scientific viewpoints of the world, and so these, you know, matriarchal more naturalistic philosophies were suppressed and destroyed. And that's literally that. Like Gallifrey is literally the epitome of patrio civilization extending itself to the furthest limits of its logic and creating an ascendancy over like time itself, because literally there's this whole thing of you know, civilization producing ways that it's able to colonize and conquer new territories, and the you know, beyond just reclaiming your entire planet, the next logical step is reclaiming all of time and space and creating these methods of transportation to do that. And that's literally what Gallifrey did.
Yeah. Based Gary Russell.
Yeah. You know what?
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Back to the waters of Mars.
A sad part about timeless children is that a part of that actually makes sense with how it would make sense that the Time Lords would be like, oh, this species can potentially live forever.
Yeah.
We're gonna yoink that, and of course, then they ruin that concept. But
yeah. No, but yeah.
But that
it makes everything a lot less
that ties interestingly into the fact that where the Doctor goes in the past and like with the Time War and realizing like, hey, my species and my people and what they were doing with our culture was like really fucked up. I should stop it. I don't want to be like them. And the fact that in trying to do that, in being like, screw the rules, I'm the only one that's left, fuck it, they're the ones that told me about them in the first place. It's like a full circle thing. Like he becomes the stuffy bureaucrat who thinks he can control everything, and has the power to back up his lunacy.
Yeah, as well.
Yeah. And boy, let me tell you, Children of Earth proves that RTD fucking hates bureaucrats. Anyways, shout outs to the whole like state your name, rank, and intention, and Ten's like the doctor.
That's a very Moffat line. I could see 11 saying that.
Yes. No, okay.
I mean, that's very similar.
Okay, but 11 would say that like 100% unironically. We're like 10 shit posting here.
That reminds me of the line from Airplane. Who are you and how did you get in here? Well, I'm a locksmith, and I'm a locksmith.
Yeah.
Also, is this the first return of the fucking planet? Not Planet of the Dead.
No, this is
the spacesuit that the Doctor wears.
The
yeah.
The sanctuary.
Okay, poggers.
Do they still have that prop?
I would assume so, because it kept making more for Companion. So it's just like the standard design, I guess, that you threw in the TARDIS and they just replicated it or something.
Yeah.
It's like one of the 1,500 clothes the TARDIS just like manufactured.
Yeah. I fucking Capaldi was apparently wearing literally the same one as well. It wasn't even he was wearing David Tennant's one.
Yes.
I can't remember. Does 11 ever use that prop?
Yes, he does in Hyde.
Oh yeah.
He says something about Clara being in a tight skirt because Moffat is overly.
Hey.
Dude, why is Moffat? Okay, I get it, but like, damn, there are some creepy lines with Clara.
We have talked about how Moffat be.
11 just appreciates form-fitting fashion. He is a metrosexual.
No, Moffat is legitimately one of those people who is attracted to like. Okay, I'm just gonna say it. He's a fucking bottom.
Waiting for the discourse.
I can't believe this is where today's conversation is going, but like. Okay, all right.
Yeah, I don't know. This is to tie this back into this. This is nowhere near. We're getting closer to Moffat era, but this is still nowhere as horny as 11 era Moffat at least overtly is.
I mean, 11 era Moffat. Okay, there's like weird stuff with Amy, but like in terms of like on 11's end, he's not like weirdly horny until like series 7.
Yeah, he quite rebuked it in series.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we first, this is pretty quick because like 10 shows up and then immediately like the infection reveals itself, which once again, damn good prosthetic work.
I have no idea how they managed to keep it going with all the water that was going over.
The mouth.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I imagine for the sleeves really and everything, they were able to put like lining into the costumes and run like a hose or whatever, but for the mouth, that's good stuff.
Yeah, just run a hose. Yeah.
Also, it was very weird, the timing of all of this, because I've been recently going... I may have mentioned this in a past episode, but I've recently been going through the Halo franchise, and there is a parasite of doom called the Flood in that franchise.
I honestly like I forget that they're called the Flood. I'm just like, oh yeah, it's the weird water parasites, and then I looked it up again. And I'm like, oh, it's literally the Flood.
This probably isn't on the level of like galactic life-ending doom that the Halo Flood is, but it's still high tier.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The Halo Flood is more terrifying. The Halo Flood is more terrifying.
Yeah. Anyways, okay. So yeah, prosthetic work's pretty good. Shout outs to the David Bowie reference. It's interesting. I like when you it's weird because I didn't remember the part where like Ten's like repeatedly like I don't like the robot. And then I like that his reasoning is because you're being reductive. That's a very interesting like way of like it makes like a lot of sense.
It reminded me of the like I forget how recent this is, but like there were the Twitter videos going around of those surveillance robots that look like dogs. And it's just like some people are like, "Oh, how unironically cute," and other people are just like, "Don't you see what they're fucking doing? You simpleton." And it's like that whole discourse it reminded me of that.
Yeah. No, yeah, well, I mean, it's not even that. It's like it's the sense of like not respecting its individualhood, which makes a lot of sense from like the doctor's perspective. Especially because he's met like actual artificial intelligences.
I travelled with Chameleon, which I don't know what the doctor's own opinion was. I know Peter Davison hated him. But,
everyone fucking hates Chameleon. Yeah. Well, I will say the one thing that didn't get is I don't understand how they figured out that the Inhuman snarling was the voice print of Andy Stone.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? He's not like because I'd understand if he was like talking normally because that's like that would make sense to be like something the voice print would take. He's not like...
Okay, so you see, after the pandemic of 2020, everyone realised masks work against face recognition, so they kept wearing them. So they had to really invest in sound-based detection for surveillance purposes.
One of the few moments of just go with it, and it's so small that I thought about that and I was just like, I don't care, this is great.
Oh, the other thing I really liked was that's another like really good like subsection of the set is like the dome that's got like all the plants in it. That set is really good.
Well, I literally went to a botanical garden for it. I'm pretty, but you know, I can't remember.
Yeah, I was like this.
I can't remember if it was the
garden
project
but it
or if it was a different one. But
yeah,
they just went to a botanical garden at night.
Yeah,
the whole place.
Because I'm like, yeah, this looks like. Yeah. Flood starts to spread. Yeah, we kind of get into the base under siege stuff, and again, really like, it's really just like how it took the spin on it of just saying like, this is a base under siege, but it is one where Ten already knows the ending, and can't really do anything to stop it.
Nothing about it. They almost tried to half rip this off in Capaldi's.
Oh, I guess.
The lake.
Is that
with the cliffhanger?
Kind of.
I haven't seen Under the Lake in years, so I barely.
I watched it. I watched it earlier this year. Kind of, yes, because that one starts. That one is a very much looping around in time kind of one where he goes back. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's the bootstrap paradox thing. But yeah, it's because the cliffhanger is Capaldi's ghost appears, and it's so it would be pre-established events that he has to die in the past.
Yeah.
But then they're just oh no, it was a TARDIS made hologram.
Yeah.
Because bootstrap paradox.
We'll get there.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's sort of like, it's really like the strength here is sort of all in the subtle facial acting from David Tennant, because it's like how you can see in his face this entire time like a lot of like honestly really like it's a weird case where like for the Doctor he is communicating more non-verbally than he is verbally.
Oh yeah, the look on his face when everyone's running around and everything's starting, and he's just standing there holding his spacesuit while it starts to collapse around
and it's something that's very, it's especially a thing with 10. Like it stands out especially with 10. You know, it might stand out a little bit more with 11, but 10 is probably the most like proactive Doctor besides 11 in terms of just like when shit starts kicking out. You know, 10's always like at the consoles doing things, and he's fucking around with shit. And you see that, you know, you obviously see that later when he's like trying to pull it out at the last second when he changes his mind. It's like, you know, fuck it, like I gotta do something. But that moment where shit starts kicking up and he's just sort of standing there, that's such a, like, it sticks out very much for 10 especially.
And you can see that kind of build up throughout the episode until he like eventually snaps.
It's like he can't even help himself. Like it's just so much in his nature. Like he knew that if he stuck around it was going to happen, which is why he tried to leave.
Yeah.
But then he just gets to that point where he's like, yeah.
I like when he's actually like leaving and walking out as he hears more and more people getting got, and you just see how he like winces and how his face moves. He's trying to slowly walk away.
Shout outs! I did like a little bit of googling, and I found it is in a botanic garden in Wales. Like I found like the actual place where they filmed it.
Nice. Yeah, it's sad because he, again, this is like 10 at the end of his rope, and this is basically the worst situation he could find himself in. And what makes it like awesome and all the more worse is that he's in the situation he isn't finding himself, he doesn't want to find himself in, but in that process he kind of latches on to Adelaide in like a companion light role, and he lights up. And there's a tragedy, but he's just like, he finally gets to understand and meet this person that he's only like read about. But this isn't like all the other times where he has his person that he trusts and he can go away with them at the end of this terrible adventure. Like there's no Donna role. It isn't until like the very end when Adelaide does what she does that she serves that Donna role of like pulling him back. Because that is what that serves as, but it's like, it's sad because it's like there's that moment in the Oasis, but then as soon as everything starts going to hell, it's just he's holding himself back the entire time, from when he's given permission to leave until he's walking out and decides to go back. It's beautifully timed, beautifully paced. The score is firing on all functions. It's a practically perfect sequence.
Yeah.
Speaking about the score, just one thing that always makes me laugh. He's walking out carrying his spacesuit during all the stuff. It's meant to be all sad, and it starts playing Valley, the one that gets a different version for his regeneration scene. But it's literally just them fucking saying in Latin farewell.
Yeah.
Fucking repeatedly, so it's just as he's walking, just the music just saying goodbye.
It is because Latin. It's because it's not in English.
Yeah. But as soon as you know that, it just makes it a comedic thing when he's walking out. Just okay, the music's just gonna say goodbye a few times.
Yeah.
Deus Vult, motherfuckers.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I like and sort of like how like the way it just sort of progressively like sets and the way it like kind of plays around with your expectations of like it does like thing after thing, and you're like, is this going to work? No. Is he going to leave? Like the entire time you're genuinely not, I feel like you're genuinely not sure if they're actually going to escape or if 10's actually going to leave, or like it's really hard to tell. And then you kind of get to that point and you have to talk, like it's a very interesting case where it is the exact same like rescue from base under siege sequence that we have seen time and time again at this point across 4 seasons, except this time it is played as if the Doctor is this terrifying eldritch being whose power is incomprehensible to humanity and is just this absolutely terrifying being.
Okay, so I have a couple comments about the things. Okay, one on the note of the singing in Latin to make it sound dramatic. I don't know why, or I know why, but it's a very silly connection. It reminded me of the episode of The Amazing World of Gumball where Richard gets a job and the universe starts collapsing and they just have this really dramatic score, but then it's actually just saying mozzarella gorgonzola really dramatically in an Italian accent.
My people represent.
And then the other note was and I lost it. I had another note.
Shit. Eldritch,
right,
eldritch
you're right.
being,
Okay.
beyond human
That
comprehension.
reminded me of. Okay, this is another like very obscure reference, but there's this book series called Cirque du Freak about like vampires.
Oh yeah, I remember seeing those in the library.
And there's this one sort of anecdote I remember about how, like, in the 17th and 18th century, vampires would lurk around battlefields waiting for people to, like, get shot and wounded so they could, like, you know, step in and feed. And it sort of reminded me of that vibe of, like, something that is way more powerful than humanity showing up to watch the bloodshed. Like, that's how it comes across to the humans, basically.
Yeah.
Like, there is someone
or
who has showed up that we can't even begin to comprehend. We don't know why he's here, and he's just watching.
Yeah. Like, it's a really weird, like, subversion of tropes because, again, it is... Yeah, he's a little bit more manic than usual. But, like, it's not that different to other times we've had that exact same scene in the show. Except this time, you can clearly see that Adelaide and Mia and Yuri cannot fathom, cannot comprehend what 10 is and what the hell is happening.
And there's almost... I wouldn't be surprised. The direction probably wasn't this one-to-one, but, like, seeing 10 come back and say, like, screw it, I'm the only one that's left, everyone else is dead, it almost has, like, a master vibe to, like, fuck it, I'm clever.
Although he is being a little bit more manic, and you can tell that he's, like, actually raising his voice, not in the, like, oh my god, guys, but raising his voice in the, like, all right, fuckers, we're going kind of way.
Yeah, it's very similar. It's like, in the series finale, the Master says, I'm a Time Lord. I'm a Time Lord. I have that right to go and
it's
conquer.
very, like, Justice Lord, or... That's probably a reference not a lot of people are going to get, but, like...
Okay, I'm going to circle back around to the time imperialism thing, because the comparison to the Master, like,
me
made
defying
me
the
think of another thing.
cosmos itself.
Because you know, when you put it like that, like, he's acting like the Master, you know, I have this, like, control over time, why don't I just do what I want? And for the Doctor, that means, you know, I'm going to save some people. And for the Master, it's like, you know, I'm just going to fuck some shit up. And I think it plays well into that idea of time imperialism, because if you posit, you know, the Time Lords as, like, the colonizers, then in this situation, the Doctor is literally like a white savior. He's like the guy who's like, you know, I'm going to use my, like, privilege and power to, like, you know, quote unquote save these people. And in that context, you know, it would be like missionary work or something. And at this time it's like, I'm just going to, like, you know, save a couple of humans, like, that's my right, you know, fuck the laws, I'm just gonna do whatever I want. And it contrasts with the Master, but doing it in the same mentality as the Master. Like, they both have that mentality. Yeah, and that's why I said it's like
the Master
it's the sort of militarist colonizer
like
versus white savior
Master
colonizer.
Is conquer for conquer's sake, whereas this is in the case of he genuinely thinks he's helping. Yeah.
It's interesting how he shows his ass, though. 'Cause, like, pardon the phrase, but he's saying like, you know, oh, I've done this and that, you know, I've kind of bypassed these situations before, but I've never saved someone like as important. And you can tell like at his heart he doesn't mean that he thinks they're unimportant. He's just talking about like consequence and like significance, but it's like it shows that if you take that power in your own hands, that ultimately it's like that's kind of going to be the reductions you take that stuff to, and how dangerous that mentality can be, and how easy it is to spiral. So like, yeah, I parallel it to the Master, but honestly, it's also kind of like the dark side in Star Wars. Like once you, it's a canonical fact that once you indulge in that, it's very easy to spiral, and that's how Anakin Skywalker went from like loving husband to I'm going to murder these kids in like a few hours. It's not as well presented as this, but it's like that. Yeah. It's that same type of like fuckery of saying like, screw it, I've been broken down too much, you know, I'm just gonna act and screw the rules.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, that's why I think like originally it was gonna just end with Ada saved them, and then they added in Adelaide committing suicide because RTD and Julie Gardner were like, yeah, we need an excuse, we need a reason for 10 not to just go and do this more. Until James Goss came along, you know.
Yeah. I was waiting till we get to the end of this, but you're the only person here who like knows what the fuck is going on with like Time Lord Victorious, and like it's kind of a massive elephant in the room now because like
well, yeah, he's sort of like it's cool as so he wouldn't go and, you know, go back to the dark times, which is a forbidden time for Time Lords to go to, and, you know, stop death being a thing in the universe or anything. He wouldn't go and do that right now, would he?
I don't know why that just made me think of how in the Marvel comics Thanos' whole motivation is that he has a hard-on for death.
Well, this is, from what I understand, I'll go to the premise of the book that's got 10 in, because there's loads of stuff that's just sort of setting stuff up to meet in the dark times with 10. It's basically people only died of accidents and everyone was essentially immortal in the dark times of the universe. Then one species was like, which is way too dark for normal Doctor Who. Just like, yeah, so we're going to decide how long you live now, and we're really fucking eldritch and horrific, and yeah, this species lives to 80 days now. And that's
why though?
I don't know. A species went and set the death rate for every other species, apparently.
Okay.
And now 10's going, what if... Literally, it goes through the whole book, just 10 doing relatively normal stuff, then right at the end, he's got control of a fleet, and he just fucking walks off screen in the book, and walks back on screen in his fucking Time Lord robes, and declares himself a Time Lord Victorious.
Yeah, okay.
Out of nowhere.
Like it's not even have like a response to that, but like,
that's some Star Wars EU Legends tier type of shit. I'm sorry, that's not.
Oh, and
why are they letting them do this?
Oh, and then 8 and 9 appear to stop him, and 8 has brought a fleet of Daleks with him to help. Apparently.
Nice. That's the correct response. Yeah, okay.
You have fun there, Billy. I hope you have fun playing with your figurines. And then the whole spaceship clapped.
Chill the fuck out.
So true.
Oh, and there's a plural ood as well. I forgot to mention. There's a plural ood.
I mean, aren't all ood plural?
No, but I mean, like, his translatable is sentient or is a plural. I'm not sure if the translatable itself is sentient, but he's appears to have a headmate called Mr. Bull. that he fucking talks to regularly.
I wonder why he's called that.
Yeah.
Creative
I don't
naming.
know.
Yeah, no, like I don't read that from this. Like I don't read like that kind of arrogance is something that like that only when that happens and he gets called out like that, he knows he's gotten burned and he's not going to do that again. He's like it's like when you get caught doing some real dumb shit and you're like so embarrassed that you like run away like screaming and like try and like do like something else for like the next 5 weeks.
Yeah, I'm gonna be frank. Like
He's running away. He's not gonna make the. He's not gonna do that.
This
again.
event breaks 10 so much that we see this is the character we see at the end of time, and yeah, the closest I can think of the Doctor ever coming to this is probably 12 in the Series 9 ending. Maybe 11 when he's like in A Good Man Goes to War and he says like, today's not the day to find out why I have so many rules. Like, when I hear that line, I think of this episode.
Yeah, like I think there's a comic which was an alt thing, which is actually it's set after end of time where a Doctor just doesn't save Wilf and then becomes a dictator of all the time or something. They do, and it's like, yeah, the Doctor has the. If he didn't follow his own rules, he has the capacity to become something like that.
I think I think one of the things that most defines 10, just because we're getting to the end of his arc here, and I think it's, we're able to comment on the whole thing a bit better, is he has this like fundamental tension between the parts of him that are still this pre-war 7 Doctor and this sort of, what 11 is going to be, he's in this sort of midpoint where he's got that tension between these more human elements, these more manic pixie dream guy, quote unquote human elements, and these more just like absolute powerful, I can just do whatever I want. And obviously 7 doesn't get quite that like savory, but it's sort of that behavior is the product of the interplay between that emotionality and that like ascendancy, really. And you sort of see that, you start getting that in Family of Blood, where that sort of comes out a bit. And then it sort of goes back to normal, after that he's sort of back to being like human 10 Doctor again. But then slowly over the course of this season you see it like seeping out more and more, and this is sort of like the peak of that, where it's just like, fuck it, like I can't do this anymore.
Yeah. As a Doctor defined by his relationship, like literally him stating it flat out that it's like, I am who I am because Rose met 9 is basically like the summary, and losing Martha in a different way, then losing Donna in a worse way that he lost Rose. Like, it's to the point where, and I think a part of this situation that gets him so much is that he can't even go on an adventure and save quote unquote the normal people anymore. Like, it's just, he's at the end of his rope where the universe is almost like, to him it seems like, is further and further telling him like, you can't be who you are anymore. Like, you can't function. And of course, like, the show continues on, so that isn't like necessarily true, but just as a character, he has been beaten down so emotionally that it's like, it's kind of remarkable that like, and it's weird, especially because of what BBC seems to be doing with like 10 in the 13 era of all times, but it's like he's lived for such a short amount of time in comparison to 11 or 12. But he's just gone through so much shit that it's just like, yeah, you're too human. You try to be like them too much, it would only end this badly.
Yeah, it's like I was also like, the other thing that I've been thinking about is like, yeah, like I still think Midnight is the darker episode, just because Midnight has like a much more nastier view of human nature. But like, this is definitely like this. There is some horror shit in this one. Like, oh boy.
Yeah.
And just the fact that like it's not like directly on screen, but it has like a suicide, like an actual one.
Yeah. I can't think of another time where this was like a suicide that wasn't directly to save another person, like, you know, some sort of self-sacrifice thing. I mean, this is like a self-sacrifice thing, but it's not. It's more removed.
Yeah.
And I can't think of another time it was like
yeah,
this.
no, it's just like the way I'm just like, I can't think of like any other media like aimed at like families that would do that. It's like fuck.
Going just to like the basic fundamentals of everything. The fact that like, I mean, it's such a simple thing. Like it almost sounds like a Moffat challenge. Like, how do I make water scary? How do I make it so that like I forget her name, but that one blonde woman gets like caught in the like main hangar area, and water starts pouring down on her, and she starts bursting into tears, looking at her family, and you like feel that, like,
oh yeah,
holy
yeah,
fuck, that's
yeah,
some
that
good construction.
Like, yeah, that was like a yeah. Yeah, that was definitely a yeah. Honestly, like yeah. So I guess like it's really interesting. Like, this might be like the single most pointed time where like the show has ever painted the Doctor as like extremely in the wrong. Like, one could like make an argument for Hellbent, but Clara doesn't like actually kill herself. But yeah, so yeah, I guess moving on to ratings, if nobody else has anything to say, like,
oh, there was one thing I was going to say towards human nature. I'm glad there wasn't a the zombie apocalypse cliche of someone hiding that they got infected. Because there's that like what was his name? Roman, the fucking kid who built the robot. Like, he could easily have done. He could easily have just done the cliche of hiding it, but no, he didn't. He went straight like, oh no, fuck, rip me, I guess.
They just all forget about that one intern, Craig. They just all forget about him. He was hiding, but no, yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah. So yeah, like really.
And then, no, sorry. Do you want to go? I just opened up my notes to make sure if I can say everything I had. So, slightly random fact. Lindsay Duncan, who's the actor or actress who played Adelaide, was the oldest actor to play a companion until literally the next episode, where Bernard Cribbins became the oldest actor to play a companion. And yeah, I think that's all I've got that you haven't mentioned. Of then random things like the spacecraft was Apollo 34 for some reason.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just, man, like, it's just, I really like thinking about it. It's honestly like, it just like leaves me like speechless. Like, this really is like the highest bar I think the show hit. This is a personal thing, but I do think this episode is better than Heaven Sent. I mean, we'll see what I think when I get to Heaven Sent, but like, I definitely I do honestly think that. Yeah, like it's really it is Doctor Who firing on all cylinders. And again, I would say the cliche thing of like, this is why I know the show can be better. But again, like it's one of the things where it's like, I don't think the show will ever be this good again, because this was something special. Yeah, that's just, yeah, it's like a plus plus S triple S tier, raw Kino goat swag poggers.
Yeah, it's interesting how it's interesting how the objectively best episodes of Doctor Who being Waters Mars, Heaven Sent,
Yeah,
all these deep character drives into their respective Doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think. No, I don't think. I know this is my favorite episode of Doctor Who so far. There's probably more ones that are like atmospherically investing, like Midnight, or ones more grounded or whatever. Like they're Dalek, Human Nature, like episodes like that we've covered. Even Father's Day to an extent, I would say. Like they all have their thing they excel at. They all have their things they do like deep dives of. What I think makes this episode special is that just constructively, it uses its time so well. It's so efficient. As I mentioned before, there are certain things established that like pay off in multiple ways. It's contiguous to like the whole like the Earth moving, which I forget because that's basically like retconned or like whatever in like following series. The character work for everyone is on point, especially Adelaide. Her and David Tennant have so much chemistry that it makes the chemistry between him and Christina What's-Her-Fuck in the last episode seem like nothing. I think what makes this episode special for me is that it takes the exploring of the Doctor's character, like, that was, like, in Human Nature, in that two-parter. It was so intimate, and such a deep dive, but Waters of Mars took that and elevated that to, like, okay, let's take that and put it in the scope of, and trappings more of sci-fi and less of, like, a period piece drama, and less through the lens of humanity. I'm probably explaining that poorly, but it takes that and runs further with it in a way that I don't think has been duplicated ever since. And honestly, I'm not sure if Doctor Who can or should try to reach for that again, because it's perfect for who Ten is as a character, and it's perfect for what that show was and what it was going to be at that time. Just like one of those perfect, like, 1 in a million shots of like creating a virtually perfect piece of art. And I would call this art. I know that's a whole, like, you know, what do you define as art? Well, not get into that bullshit. But yeah, triple S tier, PogChamp, Fortnite dabs, anarcho-Bidenist out of 10.
And Time Lord Victorious doesn't exist. Shut the fuck up. Didn't happen. This episode stands on its own.
Triple S, yeah.
All right, my turn. I'm gonna be a little bit different, I guess. I wouldn't consider. Yes, I know I'm autistic. Thank you, Jeff. I'm joking.
I mean, joking. So am I. That's not a
I know. We literally, that's like the thing we have in common. Yeah. Okay. No, I wouldn't say it's my favorite episode, or I don't think it's quite the best episode we've watched. I definitely think, probably Family of Blood, and probably one or two that I'm forgetting because I have amnesia. Midnight. Midnight Family of Blood, and I think there was one more, but I can't remember.
Turn left.
I don't think it was Turn
Dalek.
Left. Dalek. It might have been Dalek. Yeah. Actually, I would say this is probably a same tier of 10 of as Dalek was, where it's like definitely a 10, but I don't quite see it as like something that's totally like destroying my mind with how good it is.
Destroyed by facts and logic.
Like I definitely think Midnight and Turn Left were more just fucking all over the place brilliant. This one is definitely brilliant, like don't get me wrong, but I feel like it's not as like consistent all the way through. There were parts where I wasn't quite as invested in it. Definitely like the second act sort of lost me a bit. I still think it more than makes up for that with the third act. Obviously, you know, it's a very fucking good episode. It's really good. It's just, it plays with its characters so well. It plays with the Doctor so well. It is, you know, it's leading. It's very perfectly leading up into the conclusion of the 10th Doctor's arc. It feeds into that well. It develops a lot of the themes that we've seen playing out throughout his entire run, and it does so in a very visually and aesthetically and just narratively pleasing ways. It does a very interesting narrative. It's a very strong narrative, and the characters are all very good. You know, I only have that mild critique that it loses me a bit in the second act just because it gets a bit into the doldrums, but beyond that, it's an amazing episode.
The
10 out of
best
10
episode for me, I think. I don't know where to put it, or possibly entire RTD. I do think there are better episodes. Heaven Sent.
Fair enough.
But
that's definitely a case where like I can see like anyone personally making an argument for either.
Yeah, but yeah, this is definitely the top tier of RTD. In general, I think. Yeah, I don't know what else to really say after everything.
Yeah, no, it's like me too. Like, there's kind of like I kind of ran out to things to say about it because it's so poggin.
Everything's good about it. I love the little cat now, and especially I like the one with the German woman is just as she's trapped in that room and she fucking looks to see her kids on the fucking thing as she fucking becomes zombified. It's nice character moments, and just loads of nice little character moments like that. Good characterization of 10, everything. It's not really much more for me to say.
Yeah, definitely.
I like the Ood turning up random.
Oh yeah, and then and then he just kind of like pieces out and disappears.
Oh yeah.
He's like, "Hey, Doug, how you doing? Later."
That's probably the one moment in the episode where I was just like,
Is it my
okay, fine.
Is it my
time?
You've earned it. You've got a massive spin-off and the 50th anniversary to do.
No, you have 3 hours left.
We have to shoehorn you into half of 13's era.
What about the time when the 13th Doctor appears in a 10th Doctor comic as his getaway job?
Anyways.
Hey, you know, I would help my past self out like that.
Yeah.
I'll be real.
Hello everyone, Jeff here in post-production. Right before we were going to get into the ending spiel, we encountered a lot of Discord latency and such that really borked up our recording, so I will just be doing the ending spiel here in post-production before I upload the episode. Next week, we will be taking a look at all 5 episodes of Children of Earth. That will also be our penultimate episode of the year, as the week after that we will do The End of Time parts 1 and 2, and then take the rest of the year off for Christmas and New Year's, and to sort of get ourselves refreshed and focused for when we move on to Moffat era in January. Until then, you can follow the podcast on Twitter at B2TARDISPod, and you can support us on Patreon for a myriad of benefits, like access to episodes early, the ability to listen in live to episodes as they are recorded, and potentially, as was demonstrated in this episode, the ability to guest star on an episode of your choosing. I'm Jeff. You can follow me on Twitter at WheatleyDL and on Twitch at WheatleyDLT. You can follow Skylar on Twitter at SkyHigh9_5. You can follow Celeste on Twitter at NihilistPanther, and you can follow Emma on Twitter at Hasrock36. Thank you all for listening, and we will see you all next week.